She wore magic under her clothes. It made men fall at her feet. It made her beautiful beyond imagination. But every man who touched her lost everything. And tonight, the richest man in the village was about to go mad. Grace stood in front of the cracked mirror in her tiny wooden house. The woman staring back at her had smooth skin that glowed like honey in sunlight. Her eyes sparkled like stars. Her hair fell in perfect waves down her back. She was the most beautiful woman anyone had ever seen. But Grace remembered a different face. A face that made children look away. A face that made men laugh and point. That was her real face. The face she was born with. She touched the special underwear beneath her dress. The old woman's words echoed in her mind like a drumbeat. Never take it off. Not even for 1 second. Or you will return to what you were. Grace closed her eyes. She didn't want to be beautiful. She wanted something else. Something she lost a long time ago. Grace was different then. Her face was marked with deep scars. Her body was thin and weak from hunger. In her village, people whispered when she walked by. Mothers pulled their children away. Men turned their backs. But Grace had a secret. A secret she didn't even know about. Any man who married her would become rich. Not just a little rich. Wealthy beyond dreams. It was like a blessing hiding inside a curse. The first man to discover this was Peter. He was a kind man who sold palm wine from tree to tree. He had a gentle smile and rough hands from climbing. At the yam festival, while everyone danced and laughed, Peter sat beside Grace under the big tree. "Why do you sit alone?" he asked. Grace looked down. "People don't want to be near me." "I do," Peter said simply. "You have kind eyes. That matters more than anything." 3 months later, they married in a small ceremony. Only 5 people came. But Grace was happy. Peter loved her. Really loved her. He didn't care about her face or her scars. Then something strange happened. Peter's palm wine business exploded. Suddenly, everyone wanted to buy from him. He opened 3 shops. Then 5. Then 10. Money poured in like rain in the wet season. Within 6 months, Peter was the richest palm wine seller in 3 villages. Grace was confused but grateful. Peter worked hard. He deserved success. But one rainy night, Peter vanished. Grace woke up to find his side of the bed empty and cold. His clothes were gone. His money was gone. Even his shoes had disappeared. She searched everywhere. She asked everyone. Nobody had seen him. Peter was gone like smoke in the wind. Grace cried for 30 days. Her heart felt like broken glass. But worse things were coming. News spread fast. The ugly woman makes men rich. Suddenly, men lined up outside her door. Men who had laughed at her before. Men who had called her terrible names. Now they smiled with fake kindness. Now they brought gifts and sweet words. "Marry me," they said. "I will love you forever." But Grace saw the truth in their eyes. They didn't see her. They saw money, gold, wealth. Still, she was lonely. Still, she hoped. Maybe one of them would be different. Maybe one would love her like Peter did. She married John next. He was a fisherman with smooth words and empty promises. 2 weeks after the wedding, his fishing nets caught more fish than any boat in history. He built a big house. He bought new boats. He became powerful. Then he left her for a younger, prettier woman. "I don't need you anymore," he said coldly. "I have everything I want now." Grace's heart broke again. But she tried once more. And again. And again. 5 men married her. 5 men became wealthy. 5 men abandoned her. The last one was worse than all the others. He was cruel. He hit her. He called her ugly every single day. But he stayed just long enough to become rich. Then he disappeared in the middle of the night, taking everything. Grace sat alone in her empty house. She had given men wealth. They had given her nothing but pain. "I don't want this gift," she whispered to the darkness. "I just want someone to love me." That night, Grace walked into the forest. She didn't plan to return. What was the point? Every man saw her as a tool, a ladder to climb to riches. Nobody saw her heart. Deep in the forest, where the moonlight barely reached, she found a strange clearing. In the center sat an old woman beside a small fire. The woman's eyes glowed like embers. She looked ancient, but her voice was young and strong. "Sit down, child," the old woman said. "You carry a heavy burden." Grace collapsed beside the fire. She told the old woman everything. The marriages, the money, the abandonment, the loneliness that ate her alive. The old woman listened without speaking. When Grace finished, she reached into a worn leather bag and pulled out something white and delicate. "This is special underwear," the old woman said. "When you wear it, you will become the most beautiful woman alive. Men will fall to their knees. They will beg for your attention." Grace shook her head. "I don't want that. I want love." "Then this will test who truly loves you," the old woman replied. Her eyes grew serious. "But listen carefully. Never take it off. Not to bathe. Not to sleep. Not even for 1 second. If you do, you will return to your original form. And something worse will happen." "What worse thing?" Grace asked. The old woman smiled mysteriously. "You will discover that when the time is right." Grace held the underwear in her trembling hands. It felt warm, alive. Was this magic? Was this a trick? "What do I owe you?" Grace asked. "Nothing," the old woman said. "Except this. Remember that beauty is a mask. What matters lives underneath." Before Grace could ask more questions, the old woman and her fire vanished like mist. Grace stood alone in the dark forest, holding magic in her hands. She put on the underwear. Her body changed instantly. Her scars disappeared. Her skin glowed. Her hair grew long and silky. She felt different, lighter, powerful. Grace walked back to her village as a new woman. And her life would never be the same. What Grace doesn't know yet is that the magic comes with a terrible price. And the richest man in the village is about to pay it. But will she discover the truth before it's too late? What really happened to Peter? And why did the old woman give her this gift? Comment below. Would you wear magic that changes how you look? Or stay as you are? The richest man in the village was crying like a child. His mansion was on fire. His money had turned to ashes. And Grace finally understood the terrible truth. The magic didn't bring wealth anymore. It brought destruction. Grace's transformation shocked everyone. The next morning, when she walked through the village market, conversation stopped. Women stared with open mouths. Men dropped their baskets. Children pointed and whispered. "Who is that? Is that really Grace? Impossible. Grace is ugly." But it was her. Grace walked with her head high for the first time in her life. People smiled at her now. They stepped aside to let her pass. They treated her like royalty. It felt wonderful, and terrible, and confusing. Within 3 days, 20 men came to ask for her hand in marriage. Rich men, handsome men, men who had ignored her completely before. They brought gold. They brought gifts. They promised her the world. Grace said no to all of them. She remembered the old woman's warning. Beauty is a mask. What matters lives underneath. But then Marcus came. Marcus was the village chief. He owned half the land. His house had 12 rooms. He wore expensive cloth that shimmered in the sunlight. Everyone respected him. Everyone feared him. He was also the proudest man Grace had ever met. "I want you to be my wife," Marcus announced in front of the whole village. "You are the most beautiful woman I have ever seen. You belong with the most powerful man. Me." Grace looked into his eyes. She saw no love there. Only hunger. The same hunger she had seen in all the others. "No thank you," Grace said quietly. Marcus's face turned dark with anger. Nobody said no to Chief Marcus. Nobody. "I will make you say yes," he promised. His voice was ice. For 2 weeks, Marcus sent gifts every day. Expensive fabric, gold jewelry, baskets of food. Grace sent everything back. She didn't want his things. She wanted genuine love. But Marcus was clever. He started a rumor. "Grace is a witch," he whispered to important people. "She uses magic to trick men. That's why she's suddenly beautiful. That's why her husbands disappeared." Fear spread through the village like wildfire. People who had smiled at Grace now crossed the street to avoid her. Mothers pulled their children inside when she walked by. Even the market women refused to sell her food. Grace was alone again. Different face. Same loneliness. One evening, Marcus came to her house. But this time, he didn't look proud. He looked broken. "Please," he begged. Tears ran down his face. "The village elders say I must marry you to prove you're not a witch. If I don't, they will force you to leave. You'll have nowhere to go." Grace's heart felt heavy. She didn't love Marcus. She didn't even like him. But where would she go? Who would take her in? "If I marry you," Grace said slowly, "will you promise to treat me with respect?" "I promise," Marcus said. But his eyes looked away when he spoke. Grace made the worst decision of her life. She said yes. They married in a grand ceremony. The whole village came. Everyone ate and danced and celebrated. But Grace felt cold inside. This wasn't right. This wasn't love. On their wedding night, Marcus finally showed his true self. "I don't care about you," he said cruelly. "I only married you because everyone was talking. Now you belong to me. You will obey me. You will make me look good." Grace's heart shattered. Again. Always again. But something strange happened. Nothing changed for Marcus. His wealth didn't grow. His farms didn't produce more crops. His business didn't improve. The blessing was gone. "Why am I not getting richer?" Marcus shouted at Grace 1 week later. "Your other husbands became wealthy. Why not me?" Grace didn't understand either. She said nothing. Marcus grew angrier every day. He blamed Grace for everything. When his crops failed, it was her fault. When his workers quit, she was to blame. His rage grew like a storm cloud. 2 months after the wedding, disaster struck. Grace woke up to screaming. She ran outside to find Marcus's mansion burning. Not just burning. Exploding. Flames shot into the sky like angry spirits. People ran in every direction. But worse than the fire was Marcus himself. He stood in the middle of the chaos, laughing. Laughing like a madman. His eyes were empty. His mind was gone. "It's all ashes," Marcus sang in a broken voice. "Everything turns to ashes. The beautiful woman brings ashes, not gold." Grace watched in horror as everything Marcus owned disappeared. His money vanished from his locked boxes. His animals ran away and never returned. His land dried up and cracked. His workers abandoned him. Within 3 days, the richest man in the village had nothing. Less than nothing. And his mind never came back. Marcus wandered the village talking to invisible people. He laughed at nothing. He cried for no reason. People whispered that he was cursed. Grace finally understood the terrible truth. The magic underwear didn't just change her appearance. It changed her gift. Before, she brought wealth to men. Now, she brought destruction. The old woman's magic punished greedy men by taking everything they had. "What have I done?" Grace whispered. Grace lived alone again. This time, nobody came to ask for her hand. They were too afraid. The beautiful woman was dangerous. She destroyed Chief Marcus. Who would be foolish enough to marry her next? Grace was grateful. She didn't want to hurt anyone else. She decided to leave the village and never marry again. But on the night before she planned to go, someone knocked on her door. Grace opened it. Then she screamed. Standing there, thin and dirty and scarred, was Peter. Her first husband. The kind palm wine seller who had vanished 3 years ago. "Grace," he whispered. His voice was rough from suffering. "I finally found you." Grace couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't speak. "You're alive," she finally said. "But how? Where did you go? Why did you leave me?" Peter stumbled inside. His hands shook. His eyes were haunted. "I didn't leave you," he said. "I was taken." Peter collapsed into a chair. Grace brought him water and food. He ate like a starving animal. Then he told his story. "The night I disappeared, someone knocked on our door. I went outside to check. Then everything went black. When I woke up, I was tied up in a boat. John the fisherman stood over me. Your second husband." Grace's blood turned cold. "John kidnapped you. Why?" "He discovered your secret," Peter said bitterly. "He figured out that marrying you made men wealthy. He wanted to make sure no other husband came back to claim you. He wanted the blessing all to himself." "But I married 5 men after you," Grace said. "Where were you all this time?" "John sold me to slave traders. They took me far away across the water. I spent 3 years working on farms in a distant land. I escaped 2 months ago. I've been walking back ever since." Peter looked at Grace closely for the first time. His eyes widened. "You look different. Beautiful. What happened?" Grace touched the magic underwear beneath her clothes. She told Peter everything. The old woman. The transformation. Marcus's destruction. Peter listened with growing horror. "Grace," he said urgently, "you have to take it off. This magic is poison." "I can't," Grace said. "If I do, I'll return to how I was before. Ugly. Scarred. Nobody will want me." "I wanted you," Peter said softly. "I loved you exactly as you were. I still do." Grace felt tears burning her eyes. True love. Finally. After everything. True love stood in front of her. But she was terrified. "If I marry you now," Grace said, "the magic will destroy you like it destroyed Marcus. I can't let that happen." Peter took her hands gently. "Then we find the old woman. We break the curse. We end this." Grace nodded. Hope flickered in her chest like a tiny flame. But finding the old woman wouldn't be easy. And the magic had one final test waiting for them. Peter is back, but Grace is trapped by magic. If she stays beautiful, she destroys everyone she loves. If she removes the underwear, will Peter still love her? And can they find the mysterious old woman before it's too late? Comment below. If someone truly loved you before, would they still love you if you changed completely? Grace stood at the edge of the forest, holding fire in her hands. The magic underwear would burn tonight. She would return to her scarred face, her old body, her ugly truth. And Peter would finally see if his love was real or just another lie. Grace and Peter searched for 3 days. They walked deep into the forest where sunlight barely reached. They asked every village elder. They followed every rumor about mysterious old women who appeared and disappeared like smoke. Nothing. "Maybe she doesn't want to be found," Grace said on the 3rd evening. They sat exhausted beside a stream. "Or maybe," Peter said thoughtfully, "she only appears when you truly need her." Grace looked at him. Even after 3 years of suffering, even after being sold and enslaved, Peter's eyes were still kind. Still gentle. He looked at her the same way he did at the Yam Festival years ago. But a terrible question haunted Grace. "Peter," she said quietly, "do you love me because of who I am inside? Or because I'm beautiful now?" Peter was silent for a long moment. Then he did something that shocked her. He closed his eyes. "Describe yourself to me," he said. "Your old face. Before the magic." Grace's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because I need to remember. I need to see you with my heart, not my eyes." So Grace described herself. The deep scars on her cheeks. The rough skin. The thin body. Every detail that had made people look away. When she finished, Peter opened his eyes. Tears ran down his face. "That's the woman I married," he said. "That's the woman I loved. That's the woman I spent 3 years trying to return to. This beautiful face you wear now is a stranger to me. I want my wife back." Grace started crying too. For the first time since wearing the magic underwear, she felt truly seen. "But if I take it off," Grace whispered, "and we marry again, what if the curse still works? What if I destroy you like I destroyed Marcus?" "Then we destroy it together first," a voice said from behind them. Grace and Peter spun around. There, sitting on a rock that had been empty seconds before, was the old woman. Her eyes still glowed like embers. She looked exactly the same. "You," Grace breathed. "Me," the old woman agreed. She smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew secrets. "You've learned much, child. But you still don't understand everything." "Then explain it to me," Grace said, anger rising in her voice. "Why did you give me this curse disguised as a gift?" The old woman stood up slowly. She walked closer, studying Grace's beautiful face. "I gave you exactly what you asked for," she said. "You wanted to test who truly loved you. Beauty is the greatest test. It reveals greed faster than anything else." "But Marcus," Grace said, "you destroyed him. His mind is gone." "I destroyed nothing," the old woman said sharply. "Marcus destroyed himself. His greed, his pride, his cruelty. When you married him wearing that magic, it became a mirror. It showed him what he really was inside. Empty, rotten, evil. His mind couldn't handle seeing his own truth." Peter stepped forward. "And what about the blessing? Grace used to bring wealth to her husbands. What happened to that?" The old woman's eyes gleamed. "Ah, now you're asking the right questions." She circled them like a teacher with students. Grace's original blessing came from her pure heart. Good things flowed to those who loved her genuinely. But when greedy men married her only for wealth, they corrupted the blessing. They turned gold into poison. "John," Grace whispered. "My second husband. He kidnapped Peter." "Yes," the old woman said. "John's greed was so powerful it twisted everything. After he betrayed you, the blessing died. It couldn't survive in the presence of such evil. So the magic underwear," Peter said slowly, "it doesn't bring wealth anymore. It brings consequences." "Exactly," the old woman said. "It punishes those who love only surfaces, only beauty, only greed. But for true love." She looked at Peter with ancient, knowing eyes. "True love breaks all curses." Grace felt hope and terror fighting inside her chest. "What do I have to do?" she asked. The old woman pulled a small burning torch from seemingly nowhere. Flames danced on its tip. "Burn the underwear," she said simply. "Return to your true self. If Peter still loves you, if he still wants to marry you, the original blessing will return. But stronger, purer, protected from greed forever. And if he doesn't—" Grace's voice shook. "Then you'll have your answer. And you'll be free to find real love someday." Peter grabbed Grace's hands. "Grace, I already told you. I love who you are, not what you look like. I crossed land and sea to find you. Do you really think I'll change my mind when you take off magic underwear?" Grace wanted to believe him. But years of rejection had carved deep wounds in her heart. What if he was lying? What if everyone always lied? "I'm scared," she admitted. "So am I," Peter said. "But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you." The old woman handed Grace the torch. "Choose now, child. Stay beautiful and alone. Or risk everything for love." Grace took the torch. Her hands trembled so badly she almost dropped it. She thought about Marcus, driven mad by his own greed. She thought about John and all the others who had used her and thrown her away. She thought about years of loneliness and pain. But she also thought about Peter, the kind palm wine seller who sat beside her under a tree when everyone else walked away, who worked hard and shared everything, who spent 3 years fighting to return to her. Grace made her decision. Grace reached under her dress and pulled off the magic underwear. She held it in front of her for one moment. It glowed softly in the darkness, still alive with power. "Goodbye," she whispered. She touched it to the torch. The underwear caught fire instantly. Bright blue flames consumed it in seconds. The light was so intense Grace had to close her eyes. When she opened them, she stood in her old body again. Scars covered her cheeks. Her skin was rough. Her body was thin and marked by hardship. She was exactly as she had been before the magic. Grace looked at Peter, holding her breath. Peter stared at her. For one terrible second, Grace saw shock in his eyes. Then he smiled. The same gentle smile from the Yam Festival. The same smile from their wedding day. "There you are," he said softly. "I missed you." He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. Grace sobbed into his chest. Not from sadness. From relief. From joy. From finally being loved for who she truly was. The old woman watched them with satisfaction. "The curse is broken," she announced. "Grace, your blessing has returned. But this time, it's protected. Only a man who truly loves you will receive prosperity. Greedy hearts will find nothing but their own reflection." "Thank you," Grace said through her tears. "Don't thank me yet," the old woman said mysteriously. "Your story isn't finished. It's only beginning." Before Grace could ask what she meant, the old woman vanished. This time, Grace knew she wouldn't return. Grace and Peter married again 1 week later. This time, it was a tiny ceremony. Just the two of them and 3 friends who believed in true love. No fancy clothes. No expensive gifts. Just 2 people who had found each other twice and refused to let go. After the wedding, Peter returned to his palm wine business. It had collapsed completely during his 3 years away. He started over from nothing, climbing trees and selling wine cup by cup. But something wonderful happened. Within 1 month, customers flooded back. Within 3 months, Peter had more business than ever before. Within 6 months, he was successful again. But this time, it felt different. Earned. Real. The blessing had returned, but it was quiet now. Steady. No sudden explosions of wealth. Just honest prosperity built on honest love. Grace and Peter built a small house on the edge of the village. They had 3 children who inherited their mother's kind heart and their father's gentle spirit. Sometimes, people from nearby villages came asking about the woman who brought blessings. Grace always told them the same thing. "The blessing isn't in me. It's in choosing love over greed. Heart over appearance. Truth over lies." As for Marcus, he recovered slowly. His mind cleared after 6 months. He lost everything, but he gained something more valuable. Humility. He became a quiet, humble man who helped others instead of using them. He never forgot the lesson Grace had taught him. 10 years later, Grace stood in her garden watching her children play. Her face still bore the same scars. Her body was still marked by her difficult early life. But she smiled more than anyone in the village. Peter came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "Do you ever miss being beautiful?" he asked. Grace laughed. "I am beautiful. You tell me every single day." "That's because it's true," Peter said. "You were always beautiful. The magic just confused everyone." Grace turned to face her husband. Gray hair touched his temples now. Lines marked his face. But his eyes were still the kindest she had ever known. "We should tell our children the story," Grace said. "So they understand." "Understand what?" "That real magic isn't in underwear or potions or transformations. Real magic is choosing to love someone when the world tells you not to. Real magic is seeing beauty where others see flaws. Real magic is keeping promises even when it costs you everything." Peter kissed her forehead gently. "You're right," he said. "That's the best magic of all." And they lived happily ever after. Not because everything was perfect. Not because they never struggled. But because they chose each other, truly and completely, every single day. If you want this broken into chapters, formatted for a YouTube script, or turned into a narration-friendly version, just tell me.